The first jet screamed past the bomber at nearly twice its speed, yet somehow, impossibly, the wooden aircraft was still alive. The night sky over northern Germany should have belonged to the Luftwaffe. Black clouds hung low and swollen, stitched together by moonlight and tracer fire. Searchlights clawed upward, white fingers grasping for intruders. Radar stations hummed. Jet engines howled. Everything about the airspace said death. And yet, threading through it all was an aircraft that had no right to be there. No armor, no defensive guns, no metal skin, just wood. Wing Commander Thomas Tommy Calder felt the vibration through the control column, first not the violent shudder of flak, but something stranger. A pressure change, a disturbance in the air behind them. Navigator, he said quietly, eyes fixed forward. Tell me that wasn't a jet. Flight Lieutenant Evan Brooks leaned over his charts, then up at the dim green radar repeater. His mouth went dry. It was, he said, and it's turning back. In the cockpit of the de Havilland Mosquito, silence fell. They called it the wooden wonder back home. A miracle of speed and elegance. But here, deep inside the Reich, hunted by Messerschmitt Me 62 jet fighters, it felt less like a marvel and more like a coffin with wings. Tommy tightened his grip. All right, he murmured. Let us show them why they can't catch a ghost. An aircraft born from desperation, the Mosquito was never meant to survive this war. When it was conceived in 1928, Britain was already bleeding resources. Aluminum was scarce, engines were precious. Every aircraft demanded metal. Britain did to have. So Geoffrey de Havilland proposed something outrageous, a combat aircraft made almost entirely of wood. The Air Ministry laughed, then they rejected it. Then when the Luftwaffe began tearing London apart, they reconsidered. By the time the Mosquito entered service, it had rewritten the rules of air warfare. It was faster than most fighters. It carried bomb loads rivaling heavy bombers, and it did so with a radical philosophy: speed was armor. No turrets, no gunners, no second chances. You lived by outrunning the enemy, or you did to live at all. Tommy Calder had volunteered for Mosquitoes because of that philosophy, because it demanded perfection, because mistakes were final, and because deep down he believed the aircraft understood him. Tonight it would have to. Target Kassel. The briefing had been brutally simple. Primary objective Kassel, a key industrial city producing engines and components for Germany's jet program. Secondary objective, survival. The intelligence was clear. Kassel was now guarded by jet interceptors faster than anything the Allies could field. Conventional bombers were already being torn apart. That is why the mission had been handed to a single Mosquito. Low altitude, high speed, precision strike. A scalpel, not a hammer. And now, as the Mosquito streaked through cloud at nearly 400 miles per hour, Kassel lay less than 10 minutes ahead. Behind them, the jet came again. Hunted by the future, the Me 62 pilot never expected this. He had been trained to intercept lumbering B-17s, not something that moved like a fighter yet refused to fight back. His jet closed fast, compressibility screaming through the airframe. He lined up the shot and missed. The Mosquito dropped suddenly, an abrupt dive that would have torn metal wings apart. But the wooden aircraft absorbed the stress, flexing instead of snapping. Tommy felt the G-forces crush him into his seat. "Hold together, girl," he whispered. The jet overshot again. That was the Mosquito's secret. Jets were fast, but they were also predictable. The Mosquito one's wood bent, wood absorbed, wood survived. For now. Fear has a sound, fear did shout. It hummed. It was the steady drone of Merlin engines at full throttle. The faint rattle of instruments. The knowledge that every second over Germany multiplied the odds of death. Bomb aimer Louis Grant lay prone in the nose, peering through the bomb sight. 2 minutes, he said. Flak density increasing. As if on cue, black bursts erupted ahead, flak shells detonating with murderous precision. One fragment tore through the wing skin, splintering wood like shrapnel. The Mosquito shuddered, but kept flying. Hydraulics still good, Brooks reported. Fuel pressure stable. Tommy exhaled slowly. They were still alive. That was victory enough for now. Why the jets could. Kill it. German intelligence never understood the Mosquito. Radar struggled to lock onto it. Wood reflected poorly. Jet pilots misjudged its speed, assuming it slower than it was. Flak gunners fired where it should have been, not where it was. And tonight, all those misunderstandings converged into one narrow corridor of survival. The jet turned back again. This time it stayed behind them. Close. Too close. Tommy felt sweat bead under his helmet. If he fires now, he won. Brooks said quietly. He is afraid of overshooting. Tommy almost smiled. Fear worked both ways. The point of no return, the city lights of Castle bloomed beneath them. Factories, rail yards, smokestacks, the heart of the machine. Lewis adjusted the bomb sight. Steady, steady. The Mosquito leveled out, exposed, vulnerable, perfectly framed against the sky. Flak erupted. Jets screamed overhead. And in that frozen second, Tommy understood the truth. They weren't meant to survive this mission. They were meant to change something. Bombs away, Lewis said. The aircraft leapt upward as the load released. Below, Castle burned. The jet roared past once more, but the Mosquito was already gone, vanishing into cloud, into speed, into legend. And somewhere behind them, the Luftwaffe realized something terrifying. The future had just been outrun by wood. The Mosquito did not celebrate its escape. It fled. Cloud swallowed the aircraft in thick, wet layers. The world reduced to instruments and instinct. Tommy Calder kept the throttles wide open long after prudence demanded restraint. The Merlin engines screamed not in protest, but in hunger. They had been born for this. Behind them, Castle burned. Lewis Grant twisted in his harness, stealing one last look through the blistered nose glass. The city glowed red, flames clawing skyward, smoke punching holes in the clouds. We hit the rail complex, he said. Direct hits, secondary explosions. Tommy didn't answer. Victory felt thin when death had brushed so close. Brooks broke the silence. Jet activity dropping off. They've lost us. For the first time since crossing the coast, Tommy eased the throttles back a fraction. The Mosquito settled. Still fast, always fast, but no longer screaming its defiance into the dark. They were alive. That realization hit harder than any flak burst. Germany responds by dawn. Berlin was awake and furious. Reconnaissance photos arrived on polished desks. Damage reports followed. Engines destroyed, rail links severed, production halted. Castle was wounded, but the greater injury was psychological. A wooden aircraft had struck the heart of the Reich and escaped. Again. Field Marshal Göring slammed his fist into a table hard enough to rattle glasses. They mock us, he snapped. A bomber without guns humiliates the Luftwaffe. Orders flew outward like shrapnel. Jets were reassigned, radar protocols rewritten. Flak patterns adjusted, and somewhere in the chaos, a directive emerged that would change everything. The Mosquito must be destroyed at any cost. Back to England, the English coast emerged through thinning cloud like a promise. When the Mosquito finally touched down at RAF Marham, the tires kissed the runway with a gentleness that bordered on reverence. Ground crew swarmed, pointing at splintered wood, at scorch marks where flak had kissed the fuselage. You flew through that, one mechanic breathed. Tommy climbed down slowly, legs trembling despite himself. In the debriefing room, intelligence officer listened in silence as Brooks laid out the engagement with the Me-2262s. The room grew tense. They were learning, Brooks concluded. Next time they won't underestimate us. The senior officer nodded grimly. That is why there will be a next time. Tommy stiffened. Sir? Another folder slid across the table. Target photos, rail lines, aerial recon. Berlin, The officer said. No one spoke. The weight of wood that night. Tommy lay awake in his quarters, staring at the ceiling. The Mosquito's wooden construction, its gift, was also its curse. Every mission shaved life from the airframe. Moisture warped joints. Stress cracked glue. Repairs were miracles performed by craftsmen, not factories. How many times can she do this? Lewis asked quietly from the next bunk. Tommy did T answer. He did T know that Berlin loomed like a wound in the earth. The mission was madness by any conventional measure. A daylight strike. Solo, no escort. No diversionary raid to draw fighters away. Just speed. They flew low at first, skimming rivers and treetops, the Mosquito's silhouette dissolving into terrain clutter. German radar stations struggled to separate it from noise. Then inevitably the alarm bells rang. Jets scrambled. Tommy felt it before he heard it, the compression shockwave, the roar of engines that did not belong to propellers. 2 contacts, high 6, Brooks said. Closing fast. The sky ahead shimmered with flak. Lewis locked into the bomb sight, jaw clenched. 30 seconds. The first jet dove. Tracer fire stitched the air, white-hot lines snapping past the cockpit. A round punched through the wing, splintering wood, severing a fuel line. The smell of aviation fuel flooded the cockpit. Fire risk! Brooks shouted. Tommy did T slow. He pushed the Mosquito harder. The engines responded, their song rising into something almost alive. The jet overshot. Again. Lewis released the bombs. Berlin erupted. Shockwaves buffeted the Mosquito like fists. Tommy rolled, dove, pulled, the aircraft bending where metal would have failed. The second jet fired. A round tore through the tail. Warning lights bloomed. Control response sluggish, Brooks said, voice tight. The Mosquito was wounded, but it was still faster. They ran. The long way home, fuel gauges dropped with terrifying speed. The damaged line bled precious minutes away. Cloud cover saved them. When they crossed the coast, the engines sputtered, then steadied. They landed on fumes. On the ground, the damage was worse than expected. She won't fly again, a mechanic said quietly. Tommy rested his hand against the wooden fuselage. Yes, she will, he said, and somehow through hands skilled and patient the Mosquito was reborn. The final mission came without ceremony. A rail junction feeding Germany's jet bases. Destroy it, and the Me-262 seconds would starve. Fail, and the Mosquito program would likely be over. As they crossed into enemy airspace, Tommy felt a strange calm settle over him. Not courage, not fear. Acceptance. By the way, if you're clinging to this moment with me, feeling the tension tighten as it did for them, make sure to hit subscribe. More waits just ahead. And then the engines roared, and there was no room for anything but survival. Jets rose to meet them. 3, 4. The sky became a knife fight. Flak burst so close it rattled teeth. A jet clipped past, close enough for Tommy to see the pilot's helmet. Lewis dropped the bombs at treetop height. The explosion tore the rail yard apart. The shockwave slammed the Mosquito upward, snapping wood, ripping fabric. An engine coughed, then died. One engine out, Brooks said. Silence. The remaining Merlin dragged them forward, the Mosquito staggering but refusing to fall. Jets circled. They fired, missed. The wooden bomber slipped into Cloud 1 last time and vanished. They crash-landed in a field in Belgium. The Mosquito broke apart gently, like something finally allowed to rest. Tommy crawled free, bloodied but alive. Lewis and Brooks followed. Behind them, the aircraft, smoldered, not burning fiercely but quietly, would returning to Earth. The rail junction never recovered. Jet operations slowed, losses mounted. And somewhere in Allied headquarters a quiet realization took hold. Speed had beaten technology. Ingenuity had beaten power. The war ended months later. Jets became the future. Metal ruled the skies. but pilots remembered. They remembered the aircraft that outran the future were being built from the past. They remembered the sound of Merlins pushing wood faster than fear. Tommy Calder never flew combat again. When asked once if he feared those missions, he paused. "No," he said. "I trusted the aircraft, and in that trust, between man and machine, history bent." The wooden bomber did not just bomb Germany. It proved that brilliance, courage, and speed could outpace even the future itself.